Hi everyone, welcome to the content video for Unit 3, Digital Literacies. And I wanted to start off giving some information to help us really set this idea of digital literacy into the context of what we've been learning already. How is the digital literacy different from information literacy? That's what I hope you take away from this video. I will tell you that digital literacy has been around for a while and it's credited with the work of Paul Gilster back in 1997. So, I mean, it's definitely not a new concept. The definition that Paul developed, digital literacy is the ability to understand information and, more important, to evaluate and integrate information in multiple formats that the computer can deliver. So notice Paul's focusing on information, first of all, and is focusing on understanding and evaluating information, which go hand in hand with what we've learned about the definition of information literacy in Unit 2. So I'm hoping that you're going to start seeing how these terms are connected. Our first, well, actually Units 2, 3, and 4 in this course center around these three ideas. And my explanation for how these are separate really looks at information literacy as the umbrella term. And it's really that definition of finding, understanding, evaluating, and using information. So when we talk about information literacy, as you well know based on our Unit 2, we're talking about both print resources, so books, encyclopedias, dictionaries, but also digital resources, websites, search engines and such. So that makes information literacy that broad term. Now, if we think about focusing down a little more narrow to digital literacy, that's where we're developing those skills to be able to find and use information that's in a digital form, whether that is an ebook or a website or some other kind of, maybe a database or a search engine, some other kind of digital form. So there's a special set of skills that we need to be able to get to that kind of information, as opposed to walking into the library and reaching off the shelf and pulling out a book and being able to start reading. Now, even a little bit more narrow is the topic we're going to cover in Unit 4, and that's web literacy, which we've explored a little bit already, but that's focusing more specifically on reading on the internet, including searching on a search engine and reading a website. So I'm hoping that you can see how these three topics are kind of like a funnel, where we start off broad with information literacy and narrow down with digital literacy, and then at the narrowest point with web literacy. Now, here's a term that might be new to you, and that's the idea of meta-literacies. And I use that term because there's lots of exploring in how we can broaden what the basic term literacy means. So if you go into Wikipedia right now and you look up the word literacy, you're going to find a definition that says basically being able to read and write. That, I believe, is very outdated as far as in the field of education, how we're viewing the term literacy. And so you'll hear about all different kinds of literacies: math literacy, science literacy, and I'm going to talk in just a few minutes about visual literacy, media literacy, graphic literacy, critical literacy. So basically, there's lots of different kinds of literacy, and that's what this term meta-literacy comes from. It's actually a term developed by leaders in the field of library and information science, because these are also people who are dealing with meta-literacy or information literacy and all the parts that go with that. And so this term was developed to try to give even a broader umbrella than the way I use information literacy as that big umbrella term. So it's trying to bring together all of these different kind of literacies and really focus on the way that these various kinds of literacies help us understand information that we receive and create information and ideas to share with other people. So I think that's what the heart of literacy is right now, but we're seeing lots of different terms floating around out there. I want you to be familiar with these 4 terms and how they relate to our work with information literacy. So from the Center for Media Literacy, we have the definition that media literacy provides a framework to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and participate using messages in a variety of forms. Definitely links to what we've been learning about information literacy. We see an emphasis on building an understanding, this is a quote, building an understanding of the role of media literacy in society as well as essential skills of inquiry and self-expression necessary for citizens of a democracy. And definitely media literacy plays a big role because the media plays such a huge part in how we get information. Websites oftentimes controlled by some aspect of media, television, newspapers, radio, Twitter, Facebook, all of those areas really rely on media to get messages out, and we must prepare our students to be able to analyze that media. And so that's where the term critical literacy comes into place. And critical literacy is the ability to read text in an active, reflective manner in order to better understand power, inequality, and injustice in human relationships. Wow, that is a powerful one. I especially like those words of reading text in an active, reflective manner. So we're talking about any kind of text here, print and digital, but being active and reflecting, asking questions about what you're reading and viewing and listening to. Don Liu, a leader in the field of technology, calls it being a healthy skeptic. And that's one of the important skills we must teach our students to be able to do. Visual literacy, a concept developed by John Debs in 1969. He describes visual literacy as focusing on sorting and interpreting visual actions and symbols. Very important in our field of information literacy because lots of information is shared through some kind of a symbol, chart, table, image, diagram, and being able to understand that image and knowing how to utilize that information is critical, and that's where visual literacy comes into play. And then graphic literacy is kind of a narrower definition of visual literacy because it focuses on understanding and creating graphic displays of information. Now, notice those 2 acts, understanding and creating. And that's true for visual literacy also. Not just getting the message, but being able to create that message. One tool that we see becoming quite popular in the field of graphic literacy is the infographic. So this is just one example of an infographic. I imagine that you've seen infographics before. They're shared a lot through Facebook and other ways online. An infographic is basically a graphic display of information. And if you do an internet search for infographics, you'll come up with all kinds. Pick a topic. Infographic about ice cream. Infographic about shoes. You'll find all kinds of visual displays of information, and you can see that there's some real skill in knowing how to read this infographic. That's different than, say, knowing how to read an informational book or even knowing how to read a website. You're going to be reading 2 chapters in Dustin Sumney's book, Developing Digital Literacies, and you can see here a list of basically his idea of what digital literacy entails. We're not reading his whole book, first of all, because I think you have plenty of things to read, but also his book really delves into creating a professional learning framework if you were going to be a person in a district who provided professional development for teachers in relation to digital literacies. He has a lot of good ideas, but that's not really the focus of our course. So we're just reading 2 of his chapters. And while you're reading those chapters, I want you to think back to Unit 2 and our work with Michael Eisenberg and his Big 6. And I'm hoping you're going to start seeing how these ideas are connected. So you see his Big 6, and this is Sumney's, I guess we'll call these his Big 5. the areas that he feels are important. And you can see some crossover here between the two models. Sometimes it almost seems like leaders in the field are competing against each other rather than working together. One of the things I like about Summey's model is he deals with the idea of reusing or repurposing. And I know when we're working with children, we have so many issues of them wanting to copy things directly. And it's really hard to know when that's okay and how to give credit and when that crosses over into plagiarism. I know that's a really difficult topic when it comes to working with younger children in the area of information literacy. So he really focuses on this idea of reusing and repurposing, which is an idea that I think is really taking hold in other aspects besides education. I'm showing some pictures here of one of my favorite little stores in Topeka. It's called Pinkadilly. And the whole goal of the store is to repurpose. So they take things that are old or things that people didn't want anymore, and they give them new life. They spruce them up, add their own little twist, and now they become something creative that is useful to someone else. That's also true when it comes to information, especially online information. If you're not familiar with Creative Commons, I want to introduce you to it. This is a website, first of all, that can be used to find resources that are, I don't want to say copyright free, but the copyright permission has been given to be used in a new way. It's also a place where authors or creators can go to identify their work and how much they want to let people use their work in certain ways. So let's say your students are looking for images for a project and you want them to find images that are, I'm going to quote, copyright free, although that isn't the term that Creative Commons uses. You can go into the website and identify the kinds of uses you have for what you're looking for. And for instance, if you're not going to use it for commercial purposes, you get access to different kinds of resources, and then you can choose where you want to search. So you can search something like Google Images or Flickr, and you identify how you're going to use that resource, and it will share with you many images that you could use or your students could use in a project that have been indicated to be okay to be used in a project in that way. And so it take a little bit of exploring with Creative Commons to find some of the ways that it can be useful for you and your students. And then I'm going to close with this idea of being a digital citizen, because we're focusing in this unit on digital literacies and finding and getting and using information that is digital. And it's real important that we couple teaching about those digital literacies to students, we couple that with their responsibilities when they are finding and creating things digitally. And so you'll find if you do a search of digital citizenship or being a digital citizen, you'll find lots of great resources that can be used with students, teachers, parents to help make people more aware of safety for our students when they're posting things online or when they're looking for resources online. So I'd encourage you, if you're interested, to explore that topic a little bit more. That concludes our information for Unit 3. We'll be in touch later. Thanks.